All right, good evening. We are going to call this Fire Commission meeting to order at 6:02. Mr. Town Manager, would you like to take attendance?
Sure. Chair Lima is absent today. Vice Chair Verducci,
Here.
Lieutenant McCann,
Here.
Captain McAloon,
Here.
Brian Teston is absent. Chief McGilvery,
Here.
Peter Rondo,
Here.
Jillian Weinmiller.
Here.
I'm here. Bob Savetti. Steve Angels absent. Chief Heiss present. We're ready to roll.
All right, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, for emergency evacuation purposes, please notice doors labeled 1 and 2 here to evacuate out the back and to the side. I think we have a lot of good people here who could help us with that, should the need arise. By way of introduction, JP Verducci. I am new to the commission. This is my first night on it. I've been doing as much as I can to kind of catch up on all the reading. There's been a ton of products produced, so appreciate everybody's work so far. I'm coming in to fill a vacancy. I'll do my best to stay up with everybody. Again, thank you for all your work up to this point. There's a lot of good information here, so let's get started. We have a decent agenda here tonight. It's a little more casual than some of our other meetings, so I think we can start off with public comment. Let's start off in the room here. If there's anybody who would like to come up and speak, please do so now. Raise your hand. No? Okay. Nobody here. All right. Let's check Zoom, see if anybody on there would like to open up with any public comments. Please raise your hand and unmute yourself and come on in. Nothing? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the minutes, so maybe we should just put that off, maybe postpone that till the next meeting. I don't think they were provided by the clerk,
Gotcha.
so maybe we'll just continue that till next meeting. Yeah.
All right. Motion to continue meeting approval till the next meeting?
Motion to dispense.
What's that?
Motion to dispense those previous.
Oh, thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Motion carries.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much for that. First item on our agenda tonight is discussion of the table of organization for a combined department. We have several sub-bullets under here. Mr. Manager, is there something you want to take?
So, yeah, so I just want to, if I can just get this started. So I've left copies of a couple of organizational charts that the lieutenant and the captain have provided. It's just to kind of get some discussion going as to how we see a table of organization for one municipal department. I'll let them kind of explain their thought process behind it. And overall, the agenda was basically, I spoke to the chair, and we wanted to get some of this on here. And after that, obviously, we wanted to kind of discuss what our meeting in July is going to look like with the council. We know there are some outstanding matters still out there. The solicitor has some work to do regarding all-day referendums and so forth, what the legal process needs to be regarding General Assembly passage and so forth. So I know that is still out there. I know Jillian asked me about that, so that is still out there. The solicitor is working on that part of this. So yeah, I mean, if you want to turn it over to either the lieutenant or the captain to kind of explain their table of organizations, and we can kind of go back and forth on that, it's probably the best way forward, I think.
Thank you very much. Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, good evening. We figured with this organization table chart here that we have, it's obviously four groups, an A, B, C, and D group, consistent of full-time trucks, no cross-man apparatus. This is almost kind of like a wish list. We know with the amount of people that are on here that we don't have that, and we're not even close to it right now. But we're looking for the right amount of coverage for the town, this is what's up here. So you have, there's 4 engines, there's 4 rescues, a ladder truck, and then a battalion commander that's in charge of each group, plus a dispatcher. So it comes out to 20 personnel per shift. We know we're not even close to that right now, so it'd be upwards of discussing how we're gonna, you know, how, if, even if we're able to afford that. You know, we know that's up in the air right now. But and even that, we don't even have the personnel, so. How you wanted to talk about reducing that, you know, if needed be, we know we can't put that amount of people on. We understand that right now, so that's open for discussion.
One thing I want to point out, when Kevin and I was putting this together, like I said, this is not something we're looking at, it should be done next week, but this is literally looking forward. One of the things Hilly asked me is actually going forward, what we should look like in, say, 3 years. And this, honestly, with the growth in this town, this is what we should look like in 3 years. Like Kevin said, this is basically what we're trying to achieve in 3 years. The manpower we have now, we're not even close. The biggest thing I want to reiterate in this too also is, and I keep hearing this over and over again, if you look at the organizational chart, I put down Station 4, which is the Victory Highway, which would be Station 8 right now, is Western Coventry, would have an engine, a rescue, and the brush truck. Again, the brush truck manned as needed. It's not a truck that we're gonna man 24/7, only seasonal truck, so.
So the total is basically 80, that's accurate? In 3 years, we're looking for 80 firefighters? Yep, okay.
Yeah, that includes the chief, the assistant chief, 2 fire marshals.
Yep.
So,
So again, just my perspective, Chairman, I think we need to obviously look at what we have now, 56, that the accurate number now?
we're down now, I'm down to 23.
Really?
Just lost a couple more, so I'm down to 23. We're in the process of hiring, I don't know how long it's gonna take. And putting them through the fire academy and all that, so. Right now, we're working, total group, I have 22 on the floor with 1 gonna be extended out sick leave, so I'm at 23.
Wow. Yeah, I think in order, we gotta present the council the real numbers and, like the captain said, what we wanna see in 3 years. And I think we need to take this as a model, somehow reduce it to what we currently have, so we can present that to the council as if we open the doors tomorrow as a municipal fire department, what does this look like? And again, that's gonna be, I think, your job, both of yours or whoever is coordinating this, as to what we have currently as opposed to what an 80-man department looks like. I agree, this is where we should be. We should be the size of Johnston, Cumberland, Smithfield, for sure. But with only 52, 53, 54, whatever, 53 total. So with our number at 53, we need to figure out how we can make this operation function and cover the entire town. I know it's not going to be easy, but I think that's the realistic way to look at it, in my opinion.
So I like the big picture stuff, and then we drill down. What are we using right now for an average FTE cost? You know, all in, let's say, per firefighter?
Well, I got,
Just round.
yeah, Brian used 161. I lean more towards 170, and that's kind of pushing it, and that levels the playing field with just from a private to a captain. And even honestly, if you think of private all the way up to a chief, would kind of level the playing field. So you're looking at about 170,000 per year for FTE. And that includes everything: healthcare, retirement.
Just to give us a sense of, you know, magnitude, so that's helpful, thank you. So, you know, quick math, 4.5 million-ish would be the gap we're trying to bridge, just to give us a sense of what we're working towards, if in fact this is the model. That gives us at least some kind of idea as to how we get there. We've got a couple things, I'm not sure if we've worked with planning yet. Do we typically look at the growth in impact fees that would be coming with the development? Because essentially, you know, as we were discussing before, we've got so much development coming. we're going to need more service, but at the same time, we're going to be getting some fees in. Right now, impact fees don't go into a bucket for fire service, right? It's not in the formula.
I think not necessarily the fire service, but I think we have public safety in there, so could be a component between police and fire. But what you also have to look at is those fees are one-time only. So I would not recommend spending impact fees on operational cost, just for that reason, because you're gonna build in a budget deficit, right in your base. So, that certainly could help with purchasing some apparatus or gear and those type of items, but as far as operationally, I wouldn't recommend utilizing impact fees.
Yeah, and as far as plan review fees and whatnot, you're looking at, it's not really a lot of money on that side of it as far as income. It's only $75 per residential, and on a commercial property, it's based on the cost of the price, on the cost of the job itself in total. So if we get more commercial, yeah, it's beneficial for the town, yeah, but only $75 per house. Initially, the plan review. We'd like to see that go up. That's not our ruling, it's a state law. I've been asking for them to raise those fees for the last couple of years. Yeah, the price of the average price of the house is going up to $500,000. It's only costing them $30 to sell it to the fire department, or to even to build one. So, they're building, the total cost is like $325,000 on average, $350,000 on average. We're only getting $75 out of that.
Thank you for that. This is me kind of catching up a little bit, so I appreciate it if you discussed this stuff before. That's very helpful. So it seems like, we have a potential wish list, the model where we may want to go in the future. We've got some backup materials here that kind of show by position. We're looking to, again, this is theoretical, bridge the gap, multiple years out, going from somewhere around 53 to somewhere about 80. Obviously, this isn't anything that can be absorbed in one quick cycle. We're not opening this tomorrow. I know there's been some interest from the public that, this is something that we're going to flip the switch on, but this is something we need to take our time with. The purpose of this commission is to kind of go through this process that we're doing and then be able to present this out to the town council to vet. So as it stands right now, at least we have a starting point for when we're talking about that July meeting. We have a starting point for what we want to see this look like big picture wise. So this is helpful to have. Thank you.
I have some questions from my board. So bear with me. So I'm going to read them because they're kind of long. So in regards to I guess, your spreadsheet, currently we have 4 fire chiefs in Coventry. I don't know if some of them are acting, some of them aren't. Assumingly, all have a similar wording contract agreement, that the agreement shall survive in the case of a sale of employer or merger of employer with any other organization or a formation of town municipal. I know Westerns does have that. Last merger, there were 5 chiefs. None were let go. All took positions inside the district. Do we have plans for these chiefs? Obviously, they make a good amount of money. I don't know if they're all in the union. Western obviously doesn't have a union. But that is one question that the Western board has in regards to this.
If I may, regarding Hopkins Hill, the contract with our chief is if it is a merger, then that contract becomes null and void. So that's the language in the contract. That's what was signed.
He's acting. So he's not, he's interim until either the town makes a decision. Either way, then we go that way. If they decide not to, we go one way. If they decide to, then he folds back into the assistant chief job he has. And I know Anthony has an acting fire chief as well. It's one of the captains acting out of rank.
So it's just
really
like- just Western then.
And Hopkins Hill are the only 2 that have
Or,
full-time
sorry,
chiefs.
with the agreement saying that.
Yeah, so then it's just you guys.
It was under the understanding when we started this is that it's the employees that are going to be hired working on the floor. The town can do what they want as far as hiring a chief. I'm sure they're going to go outside and do that anyway, so be qualified.
Hopefully. Okay. I have other questions, but it's for further down. So, thank you.
If I may, this is
Yes,
to do
please.
with staffing. I know that Russ had done, looked through the state, and he provided a scope for square miles and population. And would you remind us, what was the community that most resembled Coventry with population?
I think it was either Johnson or North Kingstown were the two closest to us. Locally, they averaged just exactly what we're looking at. But now, we've got to come up with a plan. How do we get there?
And that number was 80? I thought
Yeah,
it was less than that.
No, it was 2 to 2.5 full-time equivalents per thousand. We were at 30,000 residents, it came up to be 60 people. And then depending on what we had for trucks, it went up. We have 64 square miles, we're considerably bigger than most of us.
Well, this is in regard to what you mentioned, to sell this. We all understand that it's, it's the goalpost to get to, but when this gets unfurled come July, that goalpost is, what is it now? And I think if we look at something that's relative to what's going on in our communities, I think that would be an important selling point, because it's up to the town to make it go down and not go down. I mean, the whole idea is, yes, this is where you want to get to. Another thing, we lost a new member of our station. The former Chief Brown and I had worked on a contract to include some stipends and some stumbling blocks removed to make it more competitive, and yet we still lost them. I think that we're all facing the same kind of obstacles if we don't look forward about getting something attractive to retain people. Otherwise, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're fishing in the same pond. So that's just some thoughts that are floating around up here. And
Coventry has literally become AAA baseball. And we look back, Kevin and I, even the assistant chief, we were talking about the number of people that we've lost in the last, say 5, 8 years. We're talking like 65 guys. We're just not retaining any. Like Kevin just said, they just lost a couple guys. We lost a guy at Hopkins Hill. It's the same exact thing. They're moving on to a more attractive department, with more stability and more. And that's the biggest thing I hear from just about every person that is left. They left Coventry because there was no stability for their family.
Yeah, it's very difficult. We can't compete with Cranston, Warwick, and Providence. That's where people are going. So we gotta take people from Coventry that want to serve in Coventry, whether it's trying to get kids from the high school, the tech, to see that this is a valuable community they want to be a part of. But truthfully, if someone's just chasing money, they're gonna go to Cranston, Warwick, or Providence. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it.
We've been doing, and we're probably getting a little bit off topic here, we've been doing a little bit of recruitment, as it may be. Captain Jimmy Almagno's been at the high school with workshops over there, talking with the day over there to do that. And there's a lot of interest because they do have the EMT program in high school, which is big, gets kids started off early. And what we're seeing right now, we have 30, I believe it's 38 applicants that are currently on the list right now. That's the most I've seen in 5-6 years. Because they know, they see a future that this is gonna happen in town, there's gonna be one department, and none of this district stuff is gonna be around anymore. So a lot of kids are coming in.
Have we considered any more creative enticements for people, we were talking the other night in town council about tax incentives, things like that. Do you guys know if any towns or, other places give you, property tax exemption or, something maybe that's not a direct, money, but a different kind of incentive? Is that something we can maybe think about when we're looking at new agreements or, things like that would attract anybody or, would help at least get people to want to live in the community as well? Just a thought. I don't know if we've gone that far yet.
I've heard from a couple of businesses, I really don't want to mention their names at all, but they were saying the reason why they don't come here is with the fire department instability. They want to make sure that if something happens to their building, they have the right amount of people and staff to an incident. That's one of the reasons.
And Chair, to answer your question, there are some districts that I've seen in the past, mainly volunteer districts though, that offer incentives to the volunteers where it's a, certain percentage or a certain dollar amount off of their tax bill. But that has been primarily with volunteer districts that I've seen that, not necessarily, fully staffed.
All right, thank you for the discussion. Anything else on this agenda item? If not, let's move right along. I'm sorry, yeah, we're still on A. Do we want to dive into any of those sub-bullets anymore, or have we mostly covered?
I have something on the Western per diem bullet.
Please, yeah.
So a question first. Western isn't in the MERS. Our full-time members, we have a couple in their 40s, one close to 60. Just curious how expensive that would be to add them. And then I'll ask my other question. I can see you.
And I think that's,
See the gears spinning in my head, I guess, right?
yeah, that's a ways down the road, because really we'd have to reach out to the state retirement system. They would do an actuarial valuation, because they're gonna have to look at all the districts that are currently involved. And then if you're looking at bringing people in that already have a certain number of years of service, and you're looking to get them into the plan, give them credit for those services. So that's an entire study that has to be done, because the other three districts right now, they're all obviously contributing at different rates. They would have to do a, consolidated actuarial evaluation to come up with a new rate. So even, putting together a budget at this point, it would be difficult because we don't know what that rate would be. I know, Central's currently at, I think, 33.13% that they have to pay into the pension each pay period. If I recall, Central was 50+%. So, they were really across the board. So, we have to determine how this is going to go forward, and part of all the legal items that, town manager mentioned that the solicitor has to do. It's also the engaging of Rhode Island Employee Retirement System to, hire an actuary and go through the calculation.
Jillian, how many members, I know they run a 401k program, correct? And how many members you have in that? I think it's what?
Our full-timers are in it.
Yeah, but how many?
So there's 6 full-timers.
6 full-timers.
I think some per diem staff might be in it, but it's not. They're full-time.
I think we're looking at, we may have maybe 1 or 2 people that are long-term. The rest of the people that have been there for a short period of time, 2 years, their actuality.
I think it's just one person who's been there since like the 80s.
Yes, exactly.
And then the rest have been within,
And I
2
think that
years.
he's literally so close to retirement, him just keeping his 401k would probably be the best outcome. There's no way with the MERS program, the town would actually buy all his stuff, it would not be feasible. Yeah, he has, yeah, they have a retirement plan,
it's just not
it's
pension.
just not the MERS program.
And then I guess to answer the question of the bullet, we have typically half of our shift is full-time, half is per diem, depending on which group it is. There are some per diem members that would be interested in joining if it does happen. I don't know credential-wise or academy-wise or how that would work, but there is some interest in that area. Some are not. Some are retired from Warwick, Cranston, not Cranston, Warwick. So they probably wouldn't want to join another. They're already retired, they're done kind of thing. So they wouldn't, but there are some that are interested.
If they're in the MERS program, they actually have to put their pension on hold.
I don't think they want to be in another full-time job.
Private pension, they can do both. They have plenty of people on both. Again, it depends on the person. If they're a per diem person now, in order for them to move to a full-time municipal department, they have to have the right certifications. Pass physical.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just letting you know there is some interest in it, so.
Yeah, from my perspective, they would have to, if if they don't have a fire academy, they have to go to the fire academy and get all the qualifications to be part of, because we want everyone with the same qualifications liability-wise. If the town does take it over, everyone would have the same credentials going forward, so. And obviously, I think those people, if they were interested, we would want them to be part of this as well. We would definitely give them an opportunity to join the full-time department.
Would it be safe to say, in agreement with everybody on this board, that the per diems, they obviously would go through the hiring process like normal, but take into consideration, they'd be a little higher up on
And a lot of them already have fire too. I know Academy is other things as well, but they're not just EMS, or they're not just like they do have qualifications, so just something to consider. Could also be a cost savings. I don't know how the Academy works, but if they already have some of it, not all of it, or, yeah.
So that's an interesting point. So as we're going through this and tracking it, we've tried to combine future expenses in a what they would look like kind of case. So we'd have to track, obviously, pension contribution additions. That could be a number that, maybe moves the needle a little bit. And then, as it stands now, academy expenses are paid for by the districts? Okay, so I'm assuming we'd have to bake some of that in, but that would be like you would always do anyway. If you had a candidate in, they're gonna go to the academy, whether they were coming from Western or outside of service.
There are stipulations, like in the locals contract, that they take lateral transfers. They're not really, well, they're laterals that have been from other paid municipal professional fire departments for more than a year. That eliminates, that have all the certifications, that eliminates sending somebody to the fire academy. We've seen that done with other towns, and there's been a little bit uprising with that with the Fire Chiefs Association. For us, Balkan, we lost 2 guys from Coventry to go to other towns. They resent them to the fire academy. Yeah, we kind of think it's a waste of time. It's like going through driver's ed twice. Go through it once, you get your license, move on.
We don't send people to the academy. They generally will hire as they already have Fire 1, Fire 2, and EMS certificate.
The idea of the fire academy, sorry to interrupt you, but the idea of the fire academy, we fought for that for years to try to get that in, and now the state has it. So we've been sending, it's just a base, it's like going to boot camp. You have your basics of training, your level 1, level 2 hazmat ops, and your driver operator's certificates. And then you bring them to your department and teach them your way, but at least they will have their basic training done. So you're not having to wait, spend all that time and spend all your budget money on training during a 5-day, academy like I had to go through in town after doing years in another city, coming in and doing another 22 weeks of an academy. It was kind of wasteful, Yeah.
Regarding bullet 3, I'm assuming that there won't really be an issue having too many lieutenants or too many captains for a new department, because we really don't have a lot of staffing now,
No.
so there won't be any.
In 2006, when they did the same merge, when she was talking about the town had 5 chiefs and they all combined, Chief Fontaine, for example, went from a chief from the Harris Fire District down to a deputy chief or something. It was more about salary and benefits than it was for, them wearing a rank or something.
All right, I think we touched on each of the bullets. Anything else on this agenda item letter, before we move on to B? All right. So, letter B here, discussion on how best to present all our findings to the town council in June, July, and are there things we have not covered? Should we break it down by categories? Anybody want to take a shot at this, or general discussion?
I would think it's going to be presented by categories, so this is the current state of the Central Coventry Fire District, this is the Hopkins Hill Fire District, this is Western Coventry, this is the Coventry Fire District, which is Anthony. And then, this is the current state of each of them, and then we present you with ideas as to, this is what it looks like day 1, and then over the next 3 years, it's like Captain McElroon said, that over the next 3 years, we suggest that at this pace, we add this truck this year, this number of personnel this year to move forward to get to, or at least head towards this direction. Because you're going to have options, especially with federal granting, to get some of these positions filled sooner on federal grant money that pays everything for a firefighter for their first 3 years of the career. So you can even plan to add people in year 2, but not have to pay for them till year 5 of a plan. So you'd have some leeway with the chief, with the manager, with the finance director to come up with a more detailed plan to help you go forward.
Glad you said that about the grants. I forgot to ask that earlier. So is there a higher likelihood of getting grants under municipal? Are districts not eligible? What's the ad?
So the districts are eligible and they can apply on their own. But to sell to the feds, you'd get a better bang for your buck by saying, we're a municipality now, we're building a brand-new department, we're really looking for some federal help. And I think the federal delegation would be very helpful, pushing that up to FEMA, saying, you know, these guys need a lot of help. They're just starting out, we're trying to meet some standards, we're trying to extend coverage, especially, you know, to the western half, which is literally half of the district, half of the town. You know, they've got 32 square miles. We've got 4 districts covering our 32, they've got 1. So we're trying to make sure that we better protect the citizens, and I think that'd be a great selling point for them.
Thank you for that. So not necessarily something we can budget for on day one, but a potential positive externality just from having the setup. That may not be as likely now or as much of a bang for your buck. So that's interesting. Appreciate that.
Are there still safer grants out there? Municipalities receiving them?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Right. So SAFER is just for staffing. You also have the AFG, Assistance to Firefighters Grant, for all the equipment, for the trucks. And they're looking to, their object is to replace trucks that are about 25 years old. We've got a few of those. So we, you know, again, moved to the head of the line with some help from our congressional delegation to push some trucks and save the taxpayers some money and get us, you know, up-to-date equipment faster.
I missed the meeting with Lisa. Did she say does Lisa do safer grants and AFG grants? Did she say?
I believe she did say that because I come up right at the very end when she was giving her presentation. That's where we took down those notes about cyber grants. Additional grants as well, cyber grants, Homeland Security grants. It's a couple that Hopkins will get for, one is for technology and security, and the other one is for decon teams and things like that. So there are others, and yeah.
And there are EMA grants out there too. I mean, you probably guys did one for the town planning, right? For the hazard mitigation plan. All that money is, right? All that money is still available on this side of things as well.
So that's interesting. I didn't realize you had that discussion. That's right. So you had our grant. Okay, so that's interesting. Under current, are we just trying to apply when we can, when someone has time, an administrator? Yeah.
Well, the districts then have to understand that if we get it, we'd have to accept it. And then planning that into our budget process has been, you know, same as the towns. It's a lot tougher to sell that back.
Right. Then you got to report on it, and that takes time and so on. So in this model, Mr. Manager, would we, you know, potentially, if they were municipal commission, they could utilize similar services as we do to have a grant writer of some kind? Or
Yeah, I mean, if we had a municipal municipal fire department, we could utilize Lisa's services. And you know, and the tough thing, as I've already said in the past, grants are great for those first 3 years, but when you have 4 hits and you need fund 10 or 12 firemen, hopefully use those first 3 years to decide.
right. You know, yeah, you want to create a structural deficit just by, gotcha. Okay, no, I'm glad we're keeping an eye on that. That's always another concern out there is people hear the word grants and they think it's great for a short period of time, but that's interesting to even know they fund personnel. You don't see that a lot, so that's interesting. Thank you.
At least at Central, right? Central has applied for it the last couple of years, I believe, so. They've been trying to apply for different grants. Again, you gotta, you're competing against a lot of different departments. So even within the districts, they may be competing against each other, going for some of these safer grants. So combining is
Federal
one.
programs, they put $30 billion in the pot and they have 800 billion worth of requests. So it's never close. It's very competitive.
You are right, we are competing against each other.
I think it would be more an advantage if it becomes municipal. You're covering the amount of area you're covering. You're gonna be a little higher up on the pecking order, as it may be, as compared to, there's no way you can compete with Providence's Providence. But you would at least get put higher up on the spectrum with the amount of coverage you get. Being a municipal job. I think this is why the districts get bounced out a little bit, because they're little smaller communities. You kind of tend to lose out to the bigger cities.
Even in Western, we've noticed like FEMA grants. A lot of the times, are you a full-time? Are you a volunteer? Or kind of both. So we don't get a lot of FEMA grants. We get some, but we've noticed in the past, I mean, because we're kind of in both hats too, so.
And this is good discussion for the actual topic of how do we present it, because sitting up here and then being new to this, I think I'm in a unique spot here, because this is interesting, and these are the things I'd want to know. So, eventually, I think the categorical explanation makes sense. So maybe a category is obviously structure, number of, people. If we could get at, obviously, we're going to have a section on bridging the gap and what that gap is from current state to, where we want to be. On top of that, it would be really nice to see, again, the comparisons. I know we've done a lot of that, so even that discussion earlier with the North Kingstown, Johnston, get people in the community are just skeptical in general of new things. So I think this one, it does help, because people can't just compare Coventry to the other communities when it suits. Sometimes there's things other communities do better for a reason, and it's because they spend a little more on certain things. So we can't just keep looking to them and say, well, this community's great and this community is, better. It's how do we get there? So that would be helpful to have. I really like the budget projections, obviously. One of the things that's kind of come up here in this discussion is not necessarily things we can bank on. So when it comes to the grants in particular, we can't necessarily bank on it, but we should have a bucket of things that, we can at least say, here is some potential pros that we can't necessarily put a number on, but here's what we've observed, and, that's good for some of the other council members, the public to hear, is that we're not going to say we're going to get this grant, but like what you just described with the grant process, I think a lot of people would be interested to hear that we're just not worth it right now. It's not worth the ribbon cutting for some of the size grants we might be going for, whereas, in the future model, it might be a lot more worthwhile. So this is a helpful exercise to go through, obviously the timeline and proposal. And then I see we've got the pros and cons. Single district versus municipal department. Another item I might want to add under there, and we'll go back through this if you guys had points to make, sorry. There's often discussion about why haven't the districts come together and merged on their own? If we can even have a little bit of discussion on, how we got here and why we're where we are. Campaigning, listening to people. One thing I never really heard was, it's all set, leave it alone. So we know we kind of did the hard part on that. Nobody's saying it's terrific. So in a way, I'd like to know, kind of right as you got there, what's the pros and cons of each model, and why the models that we are talking about make the most sense. So.
I'd like to reiterate the difference between a municipal department and having a fire district. The reason we're in the situation we're in right now is because of being a fire district, where every 2 or 3 years, we have to worry about getting people elected to a board that are either firefighter friendly or have any knowledge at all about public safety. Central Coventry for years had board members had absolutely no experience in fire-related tactics at all, no budget experience, nothing. They were kind of just taxpayers that got voted onto these boards that had no experience whatsoever. Unfortunately, that's kind of the reason that we're in this predicament right now, is because we had people making decisions about public safety that really had no experience in public safety whatsoever. And we look at it the same way going forward. Public safety should be put in the hands of professionals, not in people with no experience.
One question, if I may, if each district had their own taxing authority, if the board could establish the tax rate as opposed to the residents, would that change the dynamic for you guys? Like the town now has control, the council passes a budget, the council passes a budget, no more all-day referendum. If each district had that opportunity to change to that format, would that change your operations?
I think from what you propose, the tax rates are different for each district, and it's not only because of their budget, but who are they taxing? We have the good fortune to have an arrangement with Amgen. We have some commerce, especially with Central New England, whereas Central is, there's so many more residences. So you see a fluctuation in tax rate because this is what we need, so this is our number, as opposed to this is the number that may not suit everyone. That's what I'm thinking.
Western doesn't even have any commercial. We're only residential. I think we have 3 businesses, and they get taxed on the residential rate.
But I'm saying if the board could decide, if the board could vote and pass a tax rate as opposed to the residents passing the tax rate, would that change operations? Would it make it, like, it's made it easier for the town? We pass a budget, we set up a budget, town council passes it, it's done. There's no all-day referendum.
Tax rate for all.
Still separate. Okay, Bob.
I think what he's saying, so like
Subject to the-
Central, right?
Subject
In
to the
Central,
4% cap.
right, but in
It would
Central
be easier.
Coventry, right, probably, what, 3 out of the last 4 years, we weren't able to get a tax rate passed. You know, so it was level funded, and that's because the taxpayers came out, they voted against it. So what the town manager's saying is, if the taxpayers didn't have that ability, but it was the board, so each of those years, Central would have been able to get their 3%, 4%, whatever they needed to properly staff and fund, would that have made it easier? Would they be able, would they not be in this situation if the taxpayers didn't handcuff each district?
I apologize, I misunderstood what you said. I thought it should be flat for everything. I understand now.
In Western, I don't think it would matter. We have been fortunate enough that we haven't been like Central and voting it down. We've been, at least the last couple of years, trying to keep it pretty steady at, I think it's 4%. I have to go back to the records, but I don't think it would matter in Western. And then to answer your question for the single district, Western has no appetite for that. The board, at least, just for your knowledge.
Did you say no?
Sorry?
I didn't understand what you said.
He had asked about the single district. Western's board has no appetite for that. They'd be more interested in, if it wasn't a municipal, to do like an east versus west district. They like how it's run and they want to keep it that way.
If you look at how Hopkins Hill's been run over the last 20 years, we've had a very good board that was run by a very good chief. We had a very good board. Again, it really depends on these people who are elected on how the board, you know what I'm saying, how the fire department is ran. And I hate to pick on Central, but prime example is, it wasn't the firefighters' problem. Unfortunately, it was the board that was running the fire department. I mean, they had no experience, and they did not listen to the fire chief, the firefighters, the union, anything. They kind of did what they want to do and ran them right into the ground. That's why Kevin and I have been fighting for this. We need a municipal department.
And just to get us back here, this is exactly the kind of stuff I could imagine would come up when you go to make the presentation. So that's why I wanted to bring it up here. I mean, to me, as someone who's kind of coming from the outside, that's something you hear. And again, it's from casual people. So that's why it's good to get this perspective, yeah, because that's something that's people throw out there. So it may be that we want to do pros and cons of all the structures, just to be intellectually honest about it? Or, if it makes absolutely no sense, maybe at least a statement why. But, so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
One big topic for the council is gonna be the solicitor's portion when it comes to legal process. Like, how do we actually do this? Like, what is the legal process? Does it involve General Assembly? Does it involve an all-day referendum? What is the process to get this done? And the second part of that is negotiating a unified contract. Obviously, the minimum manning and how we set that up going forward is gonna be key to the survival of the department for sure.
So that's a good point, because not only does it require an all-day referendum, but what is the actual question? Do we want a municipal fire commission? Do we want to leave everything? So, yeah, that's very important, so. Any idea when, that's something we're gonna get before we,
Yes, he's working on it now, so we should have that for June.
okay, thank you.
So in 2013, I was the fire chief, I was the deputy fire chief in East Greenwich. And we did just that. The town council put up a referendum on the ballot. Do you want to see a municipal fire department or stay the fire district? The advantage that they had was there was only one fire district in the town. So it wasn't like they had multiple mergers, but the fire district was technically separate. The problems that come with that is each fire chief is now a town manager. He is responsible to have snowplow removal, all the infrastructure. He's got to take care of the buildings. He's got to take care of the truck maintenance. There are no department heads. He is essentially the department head of all the problems that the town manager now gets to parcel out to other town managers. The fire chief's the only guy. Payroll, negotiation, all the stuff that happens in a town happens just at the fire chief's office for the districts. It would be much better, as Dan said, that public safety is an essential town function. That's where it should be. And the town should be in charge of that function, have it professionally managed, professionally overseen. That would take the captain's concern about people who don't belong on the boards to be done, the elected officials of the town, with the town manager managing the proper and effective emergency services that the town deserves. The town, I started here in 1982 as a kid, and there were 7 different fire districts at the time. They have merged. In 2006, 4 of them did merge, and it was effective. Whatever problem they had in 2015, they had to restructure, but if that had, worked, it would have been just the next logical step for the town to just take the other ones and be done with it.
Yeah, I think one of the things, just to add to that, and I'm sure you had to go through it in East Greenwich, but we would have to get, I believe we would have to get legislative approval to violate the 4% tax increase. So my understanding would be when the local districts merge, they weren't under the state law that has a 4% cap. We would be under that. I did speak to the director over at Department of Revenue, and he indicated that even though we're adding a department, that's not an automatic exemption to violate that 4%. So just looking where, even if we would bring everybody's levy into the district, which I think we presented that a couple meetings ago, we would still have an increase of probably, like, from our existing levy to get to there, you're probably talking a 10 or 12% increase. So obviously we're violating that 4% levy increase. So there is a lot of, I think, legislative steps that have to happen, but again, we'll have to wait for the solicitor to put all that together.
During the enacting legislation in East Greenwich, that was put in there. They had a one-time exemption to the 4% to do the math. What was your budget? If I add it to this one, what's the percentage change? So that way they could absorb that. They didn't, triple it to take advantage of it. They took what they needed and just blended it right in. And they went from the problem that we have, 2 separate bills, quarterly, all that stuff, to one bill, one subject, with the town taking care of all the payroll and accounts payable stuff that before was, run separately.
That's good, because that actually was the last point I at least wanted to make on this part of it, is at the end of whatever we're doing, each option I think should have just that, current, and it just show your current regular tax bill, fire bill under each option. You could just put it like a grid. Option 2, municipal, just to see, and then similar to what the exercise we did, I think was helpful during our budget for the town council was exactly what that looks like on an average household. Just so people can see that net change. I think that was huge to kind of let people have a sense of the magnitude, because even some of the percentages that have been brought up before in this discussion, 28% increase, 42%, to show the actual number there, I think would be super helpful too in this, proposal, at least, whatever, maybe it's three options and A, B, and C. Here's what it adds, and here's what it actually adds to your average tax bill based on such and such a house. So that's so far what I've got on the presentation piece. I think these discussions, this is exactly what I feel like we'd be talking about up here when we talk about it. So thank you. This is all good prep.
You had asked in the beginning, why not keep it the same way? Tonight, you heard a number of topics that came up. Essentially, we're competing with each other as opposed to having one unit striving to get the most we can get. If we got 800 billion, I think you said, but there's 300 million, it just doesn't add up. But if we're the same, engine 6 is now engine 7, rescue 7 is now, rescue 7 is now rescue 6. We're sharing and doing these things now, but there's no benefit of having a bigger organization with, of course, the backing of the town.
You could essentially,
Sorry. I didn't realize my mic was on. I know, I'm just the black sheep over here, I'm sorry. I know, I'm consistent.
What I definitely agree with. One of the things I was kind of hoping Brian was here to ask some of the numbers. Since the last meeting, we
so if you're looking at numbers, just starting with think about how much manpower you have. I think just take the manpower that we have. I think we have all the costs. I think Brian has somewhat of a budget put together, what that budget is going to be or what that tax levy is going to be, and start with it for next month's meeting. Is the numbers that we have right now, I think, Anthony District, we know they're missing one guy, Hopkins Hill's missing one guy. We take those numbers and then include the 4 that we need. It's 4. Yeah, 3 by, yeah, right, we wanted to get to 28. Yeah, so that's 5 we need. So take those numbers right now, plug those in this chart here to see what we can coverage with that and what that's gonna cost, and then that should get us where we need to be.
Chief?
I was thinking maybe if you guys showed national standards, what's going on in the rest of the country, what's recommended. Also, if you would list like pros and cons, be honest about them all, and like response times you guys could improve on, safety and things like that. That's, to me, would be a selling point you guys would want to present.
Yeah, I think before, Chief, that we included what some of the national standards were. We're obviously not even close to those. This is a matter of getting this thing off the ground, and having the right coverage for the whole town, not just one separate area. You take the 4 districts separately on their own as a separate entire community. None of them, and I mean none of them, and I'm including Weston being the least, has zero, not even near the national standard. You know, every district would need to have at least 15 guys on duty. Nobody can afford that. You look at us, you look at a 1710 standard, like you look at each community as they want to be standalone, say if all 4 districts want to stand alone. You have to have a certain amount of people on duty to provide the proper coverage, certain criteria. None of us have that anymore. The center of town used to, and, you know, and over the budget cuts over the last few years, it's cutting down. This is why this needs to become one, because that nobody stands alone as an independent community. Never mind that.
National standard wise, this 80-man group you're looking at, add another 40.
Yeah, Cranston and Providence are probably the only ones that are pretty close. Warwick is okay, but they're not anywhere near it. NFPA 1710. Yeah. NFPA 1710 dictates a 4-man fire engine, 4-man ladder company, and then an associated incident or group commander per 15, 20 people.
So
No
we're,
cross manning, no nothing. Right now, Hopkins Hill, there's 2 people, whatever bell rings first comes first. Anthony, same thing.
so if at least if you come under a municipal budget, one job, you know, one department, yeah, you could probably meet that now. At least the standard. For at least personnel responding on an initial response. On an initial response, not dependent on other communities. As it stands right now, we have to depend on other districts, so that's like dependent on another community. It doesn't help you out at all, budget-wise. We had, and we could bring this in, but it's a long document. We had brought up a fire chief from the city of Miami who come up for a case for, in the state, and we had him in town. Did a survey of the town, and he was quite shocked on how we operate. You know, this guy has a $300 million budget. He went from the city of Miami to the Miami County. He did 30 some odd years total. 20 years with the city of Miami, another 17 with Miami-Dade County. Come up here and did a comparison and wrote a study on it. We could produce that document if you wanted to. I don't see the need because we already know what we need. We've been around here a long time. But at least we know if we're at one department under one umbrella, we could probably meet it with what we have here, right off the bat.
And that's good, because that goes back to that other conversation we were having with, these category of, we can't put a number on it, but we know it helps. So the stabilization of the department for recruitment and retention. Maybe you can't put a number to that, but, that's what you are all consistently saying is a problem. That doesn't go away in a district model, but it goes away in municipal model. So similar to the grants discussion, not a guarantee we're gonna get all these millions, but better opportunities there. So, as we go through it, and I appreciate that, just being honest about the pros and cons, like, as a resident who's worried about response times, regardless of where you are geographically, again, going back to the other points, public safety, it's kind of the number one responsibility I feel of, a town council. We're not out there every day, but we got to ensure we have public safety. So, that's something that I think up here, people would really be interested in. So, back to what the chief was saying, some industries would refer to that as a KPI or a performance indicator. So, just being able to look at comparisons, response time, even the per square mile coverage, anything like that, I think would help too. Just, in a grid, something like that can be a table maybe in a report or something is always helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think some of that's in the dynamic study. That's in there, right? Yeah, some of that's in there. Yeah, some of that should be in there already.
Yeah, you weren't here for this meeting, but if Western's rescue is out, if we need another rescue and it comes from this end of town, it can take up to half an hour. But if we're not calling, if you're getting, say, Central's Station 4 to Gibson Hill Road that's on the Connecticut border, it doesn't matter how fast they're going. It's 20 miles, 15 miles.
It's like 14.
Before we move to, I have two questions, sorry, two questions and a comment. I'll start with my comment. I think Brian's study, once we kind of nip that all up, would be a good thing to give to the council. I did have a comment. At Western's annual meeting, it was voted to allow the board to vote if we want to sell everything. So I think that there should be two columns. One, what the tax implication would be if everything was sold market value for what we have. And then one with a column, I don't want to say giving away. I don't know what the proper term would be, but whatever you guys are doing, just so we can see the differences. And if it does go to a vote, that would give at least the Western taxpayers a better idea of all of the information. Sure.
Why would you sell equipment?
So what Western's board wants to do, I think, so this might not be exactly their verbiage, but basically sell everything and then to give the Western taxpayers, because it would most likely go up so much out there, they would almost like give them offset, if you will, for the first year. My argument is it would make it be, that was my argument, but it's on the table, so I just wanted, I think that should be studied. Obviously, that would change things.
So if I'm going to sell a piece of equipment to give back money, but then I have to, it goes under a municipal and I have to buy it anyway at a higher price.
That was my
What
argument.
is the sense of that? Where we could probably get, I would say, maybe a free truck on a grant with some of that equipment that is out there?
I personally don't agree with it, but it was voted on and the board
Just trying to
has an
figure out that
appetite for
sense.
it. So I just wanted to put it out there because it would financially impact this study. So at least have two columns so we know what it would be. Because I personally have,
That's interesting, and I think that's something we'd have to have legal look at as well, because, you know, I guess based on the timing, do you have, I don't want to say the right or the legal implication words for it, to sell that before a merger? In a way, like if that was agreed to, could you sell it before it happened? Is that what we're,
I would have to get the actual verbiage
Yeah,
of what
it's interesting,
voted
yeah.
on.
Okay.
I'm not saying it correctly.
yeah.
But it's the idea, yeah.
Okay.
So a history of selling buildings around here. We had one sold for, I think it was $140,000. One of the fire stations that was sold. 2 hours later, it was sold for $230 by the private owner. So what's the sense of that?
We still have a mortgage on that as
Yeah.
well. We don't own it full out.
Yeah. I don't know
But
why
I just
it's sold,
wanted to, it would be wrong of me not to say it, because obviously it would be a fine.
What's the value of that, Jillian? Do you remember the building?
I'm sorry?
Value of the building, do you recall what it cost to build that? Was it 1.8 or 2 million, something like that?
Say it was 1.8, and I think we owe 700 still. I would have to get the actual numbers, but. And then two questions. One, Dan kind of touched on, under the findings, blended tax rate addition to levy. It's kind of a Brian question, but I'll still read it just so he knows, I guess. At the last meeting, there's a presentation showing expense savings and a blended tax table. We feel that the formula works, but the tax increases are low. Some of the savings are overstated, such as the cost of audits were eliminated, but nothing added to the town's cost of audits. We doubt whoever does the audit for the town would take a 25% increase in work and not ask for more money. Legal will not show a deduction probably for 2 years. A blended cost per full-time employee of Central Coventry and Coventry is about 161,000 per person presently. There's a good chance this price will go up with the new contract. Western is shown staffed at 8 full-time employees. 8 was calculated at our current cost with per diem and full-time rates blended, so 125,000 for a full-time employee, but it should be 161,000. And then plus whatever the MERS would be. And then he said that Hopkins Hill was also low in Brian's. So just kind of tweaks for that. If anyone has questions before my next question. And then under the 3-year budget projection, this is more of a central question. Audits have not been reviewed yet. Central Coventry's last audit was 2023, showed total at 4.7 million and would have been higher except for the 600,000 APRA payment. Additionally, in 2024, a letter was posted to the taxpayers stating 500,000 was owed to the electric company. Is this still the case?
So, no, I believe we owe less to the power company now. We're in the process of refinancing, so we haven't paid to change over our streetlights yet. So we're in the process of getting financing that will take all of those bills, whatever the past bill was, roll it in and cut our payment in half over the next, I believe, a 10-year payment period, correct? Yeah.
I guess they're, obviously besides the question, their major concern, Western doesn't have streetlights, they don't have hydrants, so that's, we don't pay taxes on that currently.
I don't have kids in the school system.
I get it, I don't either. But that is a concern for Western.
Of course.
Because our tax rate will be going up very much compared to Coventry or Hopkins Hill, so. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
1.54 maybe, 1.6.
I'm not sure.
Last
I
budget.
don't know it off the top of my head. 4%, I think, or 3 point, almost 4%.
Your tax rate would not go.
So they're taking it from Brian's spreadsheet, what he had done last week, 2 weeks ago, and Westerns, I think, showed 18% and Central,
Well, right, did Brian use, but did he put 2 trucks at Station 8? Like, did we add apparatus out there, or was it just on current?
sure.
Okay.
It was just.
I thought it was on adding apparatus, that's why it went up so high, but you'd get better service is what I'm saying. Right now, you have 2 people, whatever bell rings first, they go on that truck, and then there's nobody all the way to Station 7. We're talking about putting people out there full-time, 2 trucks out there full-time. I think that's why it went up so high.
Yeah, and I understand that. Their argument, so for example, I think Steve gave this to me, but there was just a call in Sterling, and we had 9 people show up. Obviously, you wouldn't get that if it would just be 4. So that's kind of where they're coming from, because we had so many.
Get the rest of the town to go that way, is that what you mean? Is it a fire call or rescue call?
It was a fire call in Sterling, or in Oneck.
In Connecticut?
We go to Connecticut, yeah.
I'm going to get a fire department in Coventry first.
I get it, but, so his argument is,
Connecticut's problem, not mine.
what if it was in Western?
Then we'd come, then the rest of us would show up.
I understand what you're saying. What he is arguing and what the board is arguing is with the per diems versus the full-timers is they get people, at least for fire calls, they don't really get people for EMS calls, but so in these price increases, that's what they're arguing.
So Julian, anyone can just show up and they get paid, whether it's 4 guys, 5 guys, 9 guys? Is there like a limit or?
No limit. So we actually have some people there now who have their fire credentials. I think they're getting their EMS credentials. So they're studying at the station. So if fire call comes in, they can go. It's call pay, it's per hour. If an EMS call comes in, I believe they get call pay. They wouldn't necessarily go to it, but they were manning the station, so they're there if the engine or the tanker needs to go out.
So again, I'm totally uninformed. So they get like 4 hours minimum, they get paid for 1 hour? How do you budget that kind of stuff?
It's a good question. You can't really budget per se. We have a line item in our budget for call pay And so we take what the previous year's was and we add a little bit to it, a percentage to it, basically. Sometimes there's only 2 people in the station, sometimes a fire comes in and there's 9, like, people like fire, so they come.
Well, that's the point I was going to bring up. Fire call goes out, you get 9. You get an EMS call
No,
out there, and nobody comes.
and that's what I was kind of just alluding.
Everybody
So,
steps up.
so this is why we're here, right? To provide a level of protection 24/7.
No, and I agree, I've been asked to ask questions.
Yes, sir.
If I may, I think part of this is, I represent Hopkins Hill, represent as a taxpayer. If I'm paying a tax for a service and they're 14 miles away, I think you said, and I'm face down in my garden, now where's my help coming from? And I think the reason for staffing trucks and having a broad approach like this is so that everyone is covered equitably. That's where mutual aid starts with, equitable, and make it equitable. Because no one says no. You have a hole and it's filled, it's another one's created. And the idea is, let's backfill, that's what this is about. It's back to having clout as a group and a chief that can make changes in staffing. And those are some of the things that we were discussed before. You know, have a person to be able to do that shuffling and reshuffling. Like what questions might come up when this goes before someone? Hey, where's my truck when they're over there?
We could,
And vice versa.
we could go back and forth with this with stories all night too, but we're here because we want a municipal job. It needs to be a municipal job. We all agree on that. Under one coverage, one boss, one tax roll, one budget. We could go into stories all night, but just going to waste time.
You mentioned about selling it, if you will, or how to present it. I think if you look at the funding in the MERS for each department, well above numbers that are considered to be funded. If you look at the checkbooks and the fact that all of them in the black, this is probably an argument for and against, you know, why do it? But the idea is, this is not something that can't be supported. But we need your help. We need your help.
And just like we're saying, I mean, those are the things that may be slightly intangible will go along with all the tangible items we can present, you know? That's what I was kind of getting at before. It's, you know, there's pros and cons that can't put a number to, but when we speak to the people living it, you know, even when we're accounting for all the districts, you know, certain things just, you know, like I said, you can't put a number to it, but it starts to paint a picture that at least the folks up here will be more easy to digest. So I'm glad we're getting this stuff out there now because, you know, it's only going to help. All right, we touched a lot on presentation, and we even hit some of these others. Looking at these sub-bullets here under letter B, any more discussion on that? Story time, story hour. Great. Did we put all these documents up somewhere? I know we have our newer IT person. Is this stuff all available somewhere where? Okay. I think that's something we should do too, because it just, I mean, there's such a volume of work that's been produced here. Things like this. I think a lot of people who have an opinion on this stuff, as with most things, don't have this kind of line of sight into it. To me, when you think of a town this size and the amount of firefighters and the shifts, you know, I think people just don't have a sense of the magnitude, you know, on where we would want to go, still being far below standards, you know, even though that's a, you know, a nice to have, something we could shoot for. But so I think all this stuff is, you know, it just tells a story. I just think people are very used to the district model. I think some people like it in that they know they can consistently be disappointed by it, if that makes sense, you know? So, you know, sometimes we got to kind of get out of our comfortability in the misery, and perhaps, you know, some of these documents might help that. So there's been a lot of great stuff here, and I'd be happy to put that up, and we can share it. Covered a lot of good stuff tonight. Anybody have anything else you want to mention?
One thing I wanted to add, just going back to the staffing, you guys think we could come up with a table of organization based on 53? Maybe do it incrementally, 53, 63, 73?
Well, I think that's what it was, Manager, was that we take this one that I created, that's the largest size.
Yep. Break it down.
With the amount of personnel that we have and just plug them in.
Right.
You know, like I said, and then moving on to how you were gonna
56.
hire a chief.
Yeah, I think we talked about 12 people per year. I think that's what we looked at. I think that Brian brought that up, like, it's like literally 12 people over the next 3 years. Bring us up to the levels we're looking at.
That's going to be tough, recruitment-wise.
What's that?
That's going to be tough recruitment-wise, getting 12 people per year. Yeah,
Yeah, agreed, there's no way you're gonna be able to, no way you're gonna be able to do that. So I think we take that number at 28 that we have for Central, you got 8,
7.
7, well, you need 8, you're gonna hire, all right? And then 10 over at, 12 over at Anthony. And then Weston's got. Well, at least you got the 4, so adding that in. Yeah, so take those numbers and then plug that into here, and then we'll go from that.
I could easily do that for the next meeting if you want. Kevin and I, we can put that in. And I can show with the organizational chart and what we look at with those numbers. That's easy.
All right. If that is all, then we will adjourn tonight at 7:20. I don't know if I need a vote. All right. We do. All right, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Opposed?